Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Whatever your time zone, welcome. This is Digital Transformation Talk, and I am your host, Kevin Crane. Welcome to the show. Today, we'll be discussing the topic of how the right data help supercharge your business and digital transformation. Look, the right data can significantly transform business operations in several ways. And to me, it really all starts with more informed decision making. Data-driven decision-making allows businesses to make more informed choices based on concrete evidence rather than intuition or guesswork. And this means more accurate predictions, less risk of costly mistakes, and better business strategies overall. There's a lot to consider, but this improved decision-making leads to a number of important advantages, starting with improved efficiency. The right data and the right analysis can uncover inefficiencies in processes and help us streamline operations in ways that really make a difference and help us allocate resources, both human and technology, with more effectiveness and efficiency. But, it's not just about operations internally. Our marketing outreach and competitive advantage can be greatly enhanced with the right data and the right systems to leverage it. One way is with targeted marketing. This is a subject that we've explored on our sister show, MarTech Talk. By analyzing customer data, we can create targeted marketing campaigns that are more likely to resonate and more likely to convert. And this greatly enhances personalized customer experiences, a topic that we covered here on this show. The right data and the right strategies can personalize customer experiences, recommend products based on past purchases that are more likely to sell, and enhance customer satisfaction in ways that drive repeat business and competitive advantage. There are a bunch of other factors to consider. The right data can help mitigate risks more effectively. It can empower strategies to optimize supply chain operations. But again, to me, it's all about better decision making. And from a C-suite perspective, the right approach to data and analysis provides us with the ability to track key performance indicators in real time. We can identify trends in real time and make timely adjustments to achieve our business goals more efficiently, more effectively, and with more impact. All of this can provide us with a better competitive advantage. But how do you do it? Well, that's what we'll be exploring today with a great panel of guests. But before we begin, as always, I want to say that I want to encourage everyone here to participate today. We want to hear from you too. So please join in with your comments in the chat section. If you have a question along the way, just jump on in. I will attempt to get some of your questions and some of your comments into the flow of the show today. And we'll have a few minutes also at the end for your questions. All right, let's get to our guests today, starting with Ron Gerlach. Ron, are you with us?
I am, Kevin.
Hello,
nice to see
Ron
you
is
again.
coming on board. Hello, Ron. Welcome back to the show. Ron is Chief Marketing Officer at Go Bear Oil Company with over 15 years of experience. Ron has navigated companies to success by blending AI and strategic storytelling in a B2B landscape. But away from the spreadsheets and the strategy sessions, you'll also find Ron strumming on a guitar or hanging out with his furry four-legged friends. What kind of four-legged friends do you have, Ron?
Right now we're a little bit low on them. We only have 3 dogs with us. They're all rescues, and I couldn't live without them.
Only 3.
So only 3.
Only 3 dogs. All right. Brave man. 3 dogs is enough. All right. Well, good. I hope they're at your feet, spending time with you while we're here today. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Kevin.
Next up is Elias Saltel. Doc Bossidis. Elias, are you with us?
Yes. Hi, Kevin. Nice to see you again.
Hello, Elias. Welcome aboard. Thank you for being with us today. You are Growth Marketing Director at Hyperjar. And listen, Hyperjar is a free pay-paid debit card and money app where you can save money into different jars to help reach your financial goals. But a fun fact about you is that you actually met your wife at a bus stop. Really? Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. While I was trying to collect some more data, what time the bus was arriving, I actually met the love of my life.
There you go. All right. Well, those things happen. What can I tell you? Well, welcome aboard, Elias. Thank you for being with us. And also with us today is Paul Brownell. Paul, are you with us?
Hi, Kevin. I'm here.
Paul, there you are. Welcome aboard. Paul is Hello, Paul. Thank you for being with us. Paul is Chief Technology Officer with Growth Acceleration Partners. Growth Acceleration Partners is an Austin-based technology services company providing custom software and data engineering and modernization solutions to help businesses achieve competitive advantage through digital transformation. Little known fact about Paul is also a black belt in martial arts and a motorcycle enthusiast. Really, what kind of motorcycle are you enthusiastic about, Paul?
Well, my baby is a 1997 Police Harley Davidson that we've traveled
Oh,
many thousands of miles together.
fantastic. That sounds great, Paul. Well, all right. Gentlemen, welcome aboard to Digital Transformation Talk today. Thank you for being with us. I'd like to draw our attention to an article published recently by the New York Times titled How Tech Giants Cut Corners to Harvest Data for AI. And it talks about the insatiable need for data to drive and train AI systems. And indeed, the article describes what has become a desperate hunt for data for AI. To obtain the data that is needed, tech companies like OpenAI, Google, Meta, and others have ignored corporate policies, altered their own rules, and even skirted with copyright laws as they seek online information to train their newest artificial systems. The article illustrates how online information, which has increasingly become the lifeblood of the booming AI industry, is getting scarce. It seems that we may be actually running out of data, and the situation is getting urgent. According to the article, tech companies could run out of this kind of high quality data on the internet as soon as 2026. And as a result, companies are hungry for new data, and some are even developing synthetic information. This is not organic data created by humans, but text and images and code that AI models produce on their own. In other words, the systems learn from what they themselves have generated. So my question to the group today is, what is the impact of this data shortage? Are we running out of data? Paul, I'd like to start with you if I could. What are your thoughts on the article?
Sure. Well, I think, one of the things that struck me is that it illustrates how quickly the technology and the discussions around AI are evolving. With the advent of large language models, suddenly AI is in the vernacular. Even my aging parents are asking my thoughts on AI. So it's really illustrative of how quickly it's evolving and changing in this landscape.
Well, and do you feel that do you feel that we are actually running out of data, or is this more sort of a hyperbole from the tech sector?
I think it's a little bit of hyperbole. Certainly, there's opportunity to expand. I think that the opportunities are in looking at specialized data and beginning to train models in more specialized domains, going vertical rather than horizontal. So I think there's plenty of exploration to be run, but there's definitely, the big data holders are increasing in value, and you can see that in the Reddit IPO. One of the biggest things they were touting was access to a large repository of data.
And Elias, what are your thoughts on the article, and what about this whole idea of synthetic data?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, when I was reading the article, the first thing that came into my mind was this interview from the CTO of OpenAI, where their CTO didn't even either want to acknowledge or didn't even know what exactly data they use to train their model. I don't know if you ever seen that. It's a really funny one if you haven't. Where she's like really kind of, she's like kind of hiding in the corner or trying to kind of, or didn't want to admit that they were using. She was saying like, we try to use like all publicly available data, and then she was asked, oh, did you actually use YouTube? Do you actually use Facebook? Do you use like Twitter data? And she was like really not adamant to actually say what they really use, but in the grand scheme of things, I agree with Ron that it's kind of because AI needs like billions and trillions of data to be able to train the models and try to be more human-like or to make connections with different things. They tried to use whatever was available, and I think they kind of bended the rules a little bit to start with, and I think that's quite evident in that article as well. But it shows that how that kind of data is starting to have like a lot of equity value moving forward, and like the example for Reddit that Ron gave is, or Paul gave actually, is really, really powerful. How something that in the past you would never imagine would have value, people writing on a forum style, how now they can possibly try selling this as the most important asset potentially.
All right. And Ron, as a chief marketing officer, what's your take on this article? It goes on to say how companies are even transcribing YouTube videos of just of general people out in the world with YouTube videos to gather, just more raw data. What are your thoughts on the article, Ron?
Yeah, I don't think that there's any I don't think that there's any issue with the amount of data that's out there that's coming in. I think it's going to continue to increase as we keep finding different sources. I think the issue involved is really two. I think first of all, you have to be able to use AI in order to uncover patterns and insights on human analysis. So I think the two have to work together. I think a lot of people are just looking for that quick shortcut to use AI to get to the end result, and it really doesn't work that way. It doesn't work well that way. The other side is yeah, you just have to keep digging through it to find the data. It's always going to be available, and it's always going to become more and more of it. So,
But just to jump on that, I don't know if it's okay, Kevin, because you also were saying about the synthetic data. I think that's also something that's not exactly new. So, for example, I remember when we're doing some machine learning kind of modeling, trying to do some predictions, and we never had enough data, and because it was a B2B company. So what happened? Couldn't hear everyone. Okay, yeah, so I was saying that what we did at the time, because we didn't have enough data, and that company was a B2B, so naturally don't have as many as the B2C companies, we ended up having basically to use synthetic data that was based on an algorithm predicting how similar data would look like. And actually that ended up being really good quality. The predictions that the algorithm was doing was actually even better than after we added synthetic data.
Gentlemen, let's move on to our discussion points today. We are here talking about how the right data can help supercharge our business transformation. To me, that starts with our organization's data and how we can leverage that to our advantage. Let's talk about unlocking the full potential and value of our organization's data. Data is everywhere in our organization. Ron, how do we get a better holistic view of our data to start making better advantage of it?
oh, I think the first thing is to conduct an audit to understand what data you have, what the quality of the data is, and what the relevance to your business goals are for it. And then ensure that the infrastructure that you're in can store, process, analyze the data effectively. So those are the two key foundations for starting to discover the full foundation of your organization's data.
That can be a tough order. I mean, the information is everywhere. Are there tools or approaches that you might recommend for me to simply understand what information I have to begin with?
Really,
or is it literally
comes
the
down
Attila
to
the Hun method?
no. No, not necessarily. I mean, you have to understand what the business objectives are first, and then take a look at the data and see where it's fitting into that pattern. Knowing what you're looking for to start with allows you to start conducting that type of audit to understand what data you have, what its quality is, and where you need to go from there.
And Paul, what's your take on this? One of the things that it seems to me that we should be understanding is what potential may be currently being missed by the data that we are not leveraging, how we can capture that potential. Any suggestions there?
Well, we're big fans of an iterative or incremental approach. So I think one of the early things to do, some of the first steps are to identify the domain owners of your data. Who is responsible for what types of data, customer data, financial data, process related data, and then begin to discuss what are the potential insights that you're seeking, because like any technology investment, you need ultimately to have an ROI, return on investment. So having some specific insights where you believe you may have some data to improve efficiency of a particular process or predict a particular outcome or answer a particular question. So identifying those data owners and having some particular business insights are great starting points.
I like the way you're segmenting the sort of the data buckets as well. It can help provide at least a basic framework for putting our strategies and concepts together. Um, Elias, do you have, you folks at Hyperjar, how do you approach this idea of internal data and leveraging its value to the organization itself? Is there a formal program in place that you folks are using? And if so, can you describe that to us briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in general, we call ourselves the intent company. So we think that the most important thing, because we can analyze, customers, transactions as they, because we want to be a spending app, so how people are spending their money. So we can see what is the percentage they spend on groceries, what kind of brands they're spending. We can, that means that we can even approach different brands and we can offer them the chance of, for example, having an offer so they can grow their market share. So give an offer to our customers, and also that means that they can have a bigger percentage of the market share. So the data is definitely golden for us. It's so important. And then we are getting now to the stage of actually from just analyzing raw data to actually start using machine learning and AI to start creating kind of predictions. So what if, we had 10x more brands having offers? What happens if another brand, for example, has an offer that's competing with another one? What do we expect that actually this is going to drive user behavior? And we can feed this back actually to different merchants so that they can affect their strategies. So this big part of what we're selling is that we're trying to sell to merchants that they basically can have access to things that you don't get elsewhere, because no one will have a loyalty program of every single supermarket. But with us, that becomes feasible because you can have like a full visibility, not just your own brand, but you can see how that is working across the board.
All right, that's interesting. When it comes to data, what is the most important data and what is really not important, and how should I frame information that is really in my way in terms of innovation? Gentlemen, any thoughts on what data is most important in your organizations and how you have been successful?
Yeah, I can lead out on that one. I think for me, as far as the importance of data, it's kind of the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it really depends on the domain owner and the knowledge. What we've found to be very effective is to create a data marketplace where you can publish the data that you have available as a data owner. You can establish rules for governance, how that data can be used, how often this refreshed, and those kinds of things. Um, and uh, and by having that publisher subscriber model, you begin to see interesting uses of data that you never imagined, correlations between financial data and internal operations data that previously didn't surface. So from my point of view, I think um, it's actually better to democratize the process, to provide the data with good guardrails, of course, but provide the data and let the creative process sort of surface what data is important or not, because you may find the data you thought was least important might actually unlock new insights that you didn't anticipate.
All right, well, that brings us really to our next discussion point today, and that is how to maximize the potential of these data-driven insights. As I mentioned in my introduction, to me, it's all about decision making. Good data equals good decisions. Without the right data and the right perspective, it's hard to make the right decisions in terms of strategy design. Um, Ron, what is one way that we can apply AI today that will make a difference and help us really truly leverage data as an advantage? Are there some specific techniques or applications that you might suggest that we consider as we design our strategies?
Yeah, I would, in general, I would tell someone start small, begin with kind of a pilot project. Small manageable projects allow you to demonstrate value and build momentum. Excuse me, focus on pain points, identify specific business problems or pain points that AI and next gen technologies can address. Certainly invest in training and development with the people that are going to be using it. And use agile methodologies to quickly test, learn, and refine your strategies. Those would be the four starting points that I would go to simplify the adoption of using next gen technology.
All right. And Paul, do you agree with that? What's one way that you feel we can apply AI today that will make a real difference with data and insights and decision making?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ron's approach of doing it incrementally. One of the things is really leveraging the human factor. Find the people that are already naturally more data oriented in your organization, departments where they've begun tracking KPIs for some period of time, or have some data that they've sort of manually gathered together to be a little bit more data driven, and then put some tools in place as the rocket fuel to sort of accelerate that enthusiasm. So find the places where people are already attempting to crawl or move to walk, and help them get some tools in place to accelerate the momentum that's already building. Those then become the lighthouse for other organizations or other departments that will look and say, oh, I really like what they've done with their predictive dashboard, or what HR is doing about forecasting employee satisfaction and how that affects their business decisions. I want to do that same thing for my department or for my functional area.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's interesting. Please go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I would just say that I found it a great point, and it kind of reminded me how we started, using AI in the last couple of jobs. I was including Hyperjar previously as well. It's like we started mainly where we had a good data or we had a really big problem. So for example, one of the things we had was customer service. It's really hard to service people 24/7, but because we're like a bank, we need to have we need to give people access to customer services whenever they really need to, because they might need to freeze their car, they might, stolen their car and all this kind of stuff. So one of the first things we did was like on the CST team, is like in the customer service team, where we actually automated and we made basically enhancements of our bot, so that actually is much smarter and using AI. And since we did that, we managed to survive those very difficult hours. It was very kind of a weird kind of morning out that no one really wanted to work, and minimize the work of the people that needed to work, because the majority of the time was actually be able to self-served with the bot. It was AI driven. It was able to really learn what exactly there is the question and what was the response was meant to be. So I think, so starting from where there's appetite, because there is a very big need. I think that's a very, very important thing. And then start where exactly, as Paul said, you really need to have good data to do that. You cannot use AI when your data is kind of not reliable enough, because then you don't teach it the right way. It's like as if you didn't have actually the whole YouTube video, you would turn it like teaching a model with it. It would never work well.
Yes, Ron, if you could share your opinion on this would be great.
Well, no, I was just going to say I agree with Elias and Paul on that. I mean, it's important. Again, like I said, start small, focus on specific needs, make sure that your data is clean and correct, and allow the system to work with you to continually learn. You and the system are kind of a partnership in that sense.
Okay.
Which platforms
perfect.
do you guys have actually used? For example, I had very best success on a lot of platforms that were kind of compatible with AWS, but I would be interested, I don't know if it's okay to ask Hannah this question, what others have used and what they found best success.
Well, we get involved in a lot of different tools, from Snowflake to Databricks to using core tools built into Google Workspace. It really varies depending on the volume of the data that customers are dealing with, and their level of sophistication. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as linked spreadsheets with data as sort of the baby steps to get into analytics, to start collecting the data, and then as you get more sophisticated, building automated pipelines that manage and clean the data, and are used for more downstream processing. But it's sort of choosing the right tool for the scale and scope and sophistication of the problem you're facing.
Very good. We are here today with Ron Gerlach from Gobert Oil Company, Elias Talbossidis, Growth Marketing Director at Hyperjar, and Paul Brownell, Chief Technology Officer at Growth Acceleration Partners. I want to apologize for the technical difficulties that we've been having today when we're bringing together people from around the world. These things sometimes happen, so thank you for your patience today. We're here today talking about how the right data can help supercharge your business transformation. And if you have a question or a comment for our panel today, please feel free to jump in and provide us with your questions or your comments. Indeed, gentlemen, we have a question here from James. James, thank you for your contribution today. James is asking, are we moving to a point where no data should be discarded in case it could be valuable in the future? And folks, this is an interesting topic because often in information management, we talk about redundant, obsolete, or trivial data that should, and is typically, it's recommended that be eliminated. However, now with this potential shortage of data, we don't know what the future may bring. James is bringing up a good point. Are we moving to a point where no data should be discarded? And if so, what are the implications of that? Elias, what are your thoughts on that?
In the companies I've worked the last few years, and they were all tech companies, the approach that we take on this one is actually that we normally don't discard data, but what we do is after, because they were all regulated, we had to keep the data for 5 years for our customers, but everything after that, we just anonymize them and keep them. So there would not be any PII data that we would keep, but we would keep everything else as and when we might need them. So that's James's question. I think is really valid. That that was the approach we took in the last few companies I'm working with. It is we keep all the data that we can afford, and we anonymize them so we are compliant.
Well, what are the implications of that, Paul, for Growth Acceleration Partners? I mean, you're working with companies on digital transformation. What are the policies and recommendations at Growth Acceleration Partners about this idea of data retention? Should we retain everything forever?
Yeah, I think from a purely technical perspective, you would want to hold on to things. I think the counterbalancing factors are, one, does it introduce bias into the results? So, for example, if you're operating in a changing world and you keep old data, it tends to anchor you in predictions based on the past. So you need to make intentional decisions about what data is relevant and may actually detract from your ability to predict and forecast going forward. The other factor encouraging you to get rid of data is more from a legal and compliance perspective. And Elias referred to anonymizing the data to avoid some of that risk. There's also data that you actually don't want to keep because it creates a legal exposure for you. So you want to look at those factors around bias and around legal exposure. And if it doesn't represent a risk of either of those, then keep it for as long as you can afford.
All right. Well, interesting conundrum for many organizations, since there are benefits and downsides to each. But let's move on to our third discussion point today, gentlemen, and that is simplifying the adoption of next generation technologies to deliver a strategic AI powered business capabilities. Really, look, the adoption of AI tools seems complex. Do I need a team of computer scientists to really make this work? Ron, what's your opinion on that?
No.
What about tools
No.
that can enable change agents in the organization to implement AI without necessarily a team of data scientists?
No, no, you don't need a team. I mean, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. Just, I mean, start small. Start, bite off as much as you can chew to start with. Begin with pilot projects, small, manageable projects that you can demonstrate results from it and show value. And do that focusing on the business pain points. Identify what specific business problems that you want to solve, and then help AI learn to work with you to address those issues. And I think doing those two things from the start doesn't require a whole department or a team or outside universities or anything like that to work with you. Just work at it small and work your way up through it.
And I would add to that to create opportunities for information sharing. So form some internal working groups where people can share their experience and their knowledge. It's been very valuable for us to have those kind of sharing environments where people make discoveries about how they're using their data or a particular tool, and share the results of those experiments. It creates a nice, bonding and enthusiasm within the team.
Yeah, and it also gives you a way to be able to refine strategies from there.
Mhm.
So
the one thing that we found important pretty quickly on was to just establish some guardrails, some usage practices, just to protect uh, privacy and good hygiene around storage and security of data. Um, and I think it can be as simple as just getting together and saying, these are the agreements of how we're going to use or not use this data. These are the things that we have to be careful with restriction, just so that there's an awareness of the governance aspects of data. It doesn't have to be heavy-handed, but it's a discussion that's important to have as you incrementally stick your big toe into the water. Elias, what do you think on that?
What about low code? Is low code an option in the area of AI applications today, or are we still not there yet?
I think that there's definitely space for packaged analytics and reporting tools. I would go there before low code, because low code really implies that you're doing much more sophisticated data pipelines and data cleansing.
Okay.
I think the simplest place to start are using some dashboard tools to do summarization and reporting of data, and then that's sort of the on-ramp into more predictive analytics and more sophisticated data practices.
Yeah, and I
All right,
think
very good.
if I jump on that,
We are go ahead, please.
So there's some delay. I was just saying, like, if I jump on that I agree with Paul, but to be fair, some it depends on what the definition. Some of these tools actually can be called no code, or something can be low code. Like quite a lot of the AI tools, they don't require any code because it's all interface. And you can just use it and you just get results, like from, Synthesia doing AI video. You don't write any code, for example, to like the examples you gave before about data blocks and all this kind of stuff, they are low code or sometimes even no code because you're just connecting different data sources on a very specific or existing models. So I think, yeah, I would possibly, answer that depending again on the definition of possibility. Everything is possible, from no code, quite a lot, to low code, to actually very heavily codes. If you want to be really advanced, that would be kind of, I guess, that my interpretation of that question. But it's not that I disagree or something.
All right. All right, gentlemen, we are starting to close into the later part of our show today. Folks attending today, if you have a question or a comment for our panelists, please do it. Feel free to pop that into the chat feature at this time. Before we close out, though, gentlemen, I have one last question. Can anyone give me an example of AI in action today where it is leveraging data to really supercharge the business? Any example of an organization or a client or a use case that you feel we should consider today in designing our strategies? Anyone with an example of AI in action that we should consider?
Well, I can think of many. I'd say the one that is probably the most sophisticated use that I've seen is using demographic data to predict locations to expand retail. So identifying if we're going to open a new restaurant location, quick service restaurant location in the Austin, Texas area, where is the best opportunity to get high traffic and the demographic that we're looking for. So there's one of our clients uses very sophisticated predictive analytics to what if the new store strategies and store opening locations.
Very good. Anyone else with an application of AI and data that we should consider?
Well, we use it in one of our divisions for IFM, which is a lubrication service that handles high capital rotating equipment for companies that are just being built or going through what we call a turnaround on it. And right now we're using AI to do predictive analysis for when this equipment is either approaching fail mode or getting to the point to where they're putting their investment at risk. We use that information to then go in and market to the company, telling them that this is what we understand about your equipment. This is the capital investment that you've made in it. Here's our service costs this much to come in and do a turnaround, do a high velocity oil change for a lot of your equipment. And based on the data that we have, you're looking at this time frame to where it really needs to be done.
It's fascinating, Ron. That reminds me of another client that's doing something very similar, but they're doing it on the commercial to consumer. They create igniters for boiler systems, and they're using predictive analytics to determine how soon the boiler igniter is going to fail based on the frequency of the data, and they're IoT connected devices, so they can actually see the activity, and they can proactively call their consumer and say, Mr. Smith, your boiler is showing signs that it needs service. If you're going to have a failure soon, can we schedule a service call so that you don't have an emergency call on a Saturday? So very similar, but in a consumer space.
Yeah, and in a lot of these, there's a company that I worked with in the past that made concession equipment and supplies, and the margins for making the equipment are so small that AI really comes into play in letting them know, predicting when failure is going to happen. That way, they're able to service the equipment, because putting that kind of device in the equipment would push them over the margins to be able to sell it that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gentlemen, in the time that we have left, we have another comment from James. And James Warrener, thank you for your comment and your contributions today. You have earned yourself a fashionable and highly functional Digital Transformation Talk coffee mug. So stand by for more on that, James. We will hook you up with your very own coffee mug here for your participation today. Thank you. But James makes this comment. Code, low code, no code. He's saying maybe people move from being coders to lawyers so we can be precise enough when we are prompting in natural language. That's interesting. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on that? Perhaps there needs to be a focus from a different type of focus, perhaps from our attorneys in terms of low code and application of data in these systems. What are your thoughts?
My thought is always what they say. If there's sometimes if it's not clear what the product is, normally you are the product. So I guess that's what possibly James is trying to say, that if you're not paying for something and somehow you're getting a really nice free service, as what Google is doing, for example, what Facebook is doing, you kind of feel like, there's a reason why you're not paying for it. So whether we're becoming lawyers, I'm not sure, but I guess, the legal and compliance issues with all these, I don't think they've been solved yet. That's for sure.
All right. All right, gentlemen, we are here today with Digital Transformation Talk with Ron Gerlach, Elias Saltalbasidis, and Paul Brownell. Gentlemen, we have reached the action item round of the program. I'm wondering if you could each provide us with one quick action item that our viewers can use to take advantage of the ideas and advice today. Ron, I'd like to start with you today. Do you have an action item for us?
It's going to be the same action item that I've been bringing up throughout the whole program. If you can analyze the data that's coming in, making sure that it's quality data, start small. Don't overcomplicate things. Understand what your business objectives are, what the problem is you're trying to solve. Start out small and work incrementally from there.
Thank you, Ron. That is Ron Gerlach. Elias, do you have an action item for us today?
I think what I would recommend to everyone, and I think is possibly actionable in most companies, is let most people in the company that are computer literate to actually have access to as much data as possible, as much as as legally also and compliant available, and let them be able to access them through Snowflake or through Tableau, whatever the literacy level is, so they can actually really understand the data and start really being self-served and really understand, go under the hood rather than go to the analytics team and ask to create a dashboard for you. I think that's the first step to actually becoming more hands-on with data and start thinking what could be automated, what could be then go to a model and build something on the back of that.
That is Elias Saltalbasidis. Thank you, Elias, for that. And finally, Paul Brunel, do you have an action item for us, Paul?
Yeah, I would build on both Elias and Ron and say to start incrementally, find a way to publish the data internally, to create a data catalog that the domain data owners can begin publishing to, and by publishing that in small increments, it democratizes the data, as Elias was talking about, and gives people a small way that they can start from Ron's perspective of let's get some meaningful data, let's get it out there, get people to start using it, and then the benefits will sort of build from there. I've been amazed at the creative solutions that come out when suddenly you give access to a lot of smart business people, and they start collaborating across departmental lines just based on the data that's available.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
All right, very good, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your comments today and your contributions. I want to thank you so much for being with us today. Your perspectives and advice were spot on, so thank you so much. I hope we get a chance to talk again soon. And to everyone joining us today, thank you too, and thank you for putting up with our technical difficulties. Join us again next week on the 16th of April when we have another great panel of guests discussing the topic of the transformed and tech-driven HR function. That should be another great discussion. In the meantime, if you'd like to find me, you can do so on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there, so check me out. I'm Kevin Crane, and you can check out my weekly audio podcast, the Digital Transformation Podcast. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of Digital Transformation Talk. And until next time, I'm Kevin Crane. Thanks for watching.